right. In order to increase revenue this season, we've decided to cut the podcast in half and make all you fools grab a second link. No, kidding. Totally fumbled the fat finger there. Does go on. Part 2 of the Squatchers Lounge podcast coming right up. Starting off with a little bit of camping tips for stupid. So bear with me, folks. It's the first time in a long time that's happened. So here we go. Once again, Reverend Jeff, the host of the podcast. Hey, yeah, I suck. I know. Sorry, folks. Thanks, everybody, for clicking over. Only half of you made it. I guess the other half will come. They figure it out later. Whoops-a-daisy. It does happen. But you know what? We still have to go on with the show. So here's our camping tips for stupids for the week with Mr. Jevin Moore. Yeah. Hey, we're the monkeys. And sometimes monkeys really screw up. I don't know. Here we go. Thanks, people.
Camping tips for stupids. A look back at some of the best moments of tips from 2016.
You did not do oh, you jackass. Yeah. Get him dropped. Woo.
This has been Camping Tips for Stupids. You all have a happy new year. And remember not to eat the yellow snow.
Don't eat the yellow snow. Spay and neuter your dumb population so they don't do stuff like this. Way to go, Jevin. Seriously, buddy, that definitely did make me laugh. Hey, as I promised earlier, we do have a new segment on the show called Cameron's Top 5 Bigfoot List. That's right. And this week it is a searching hotspots list. And we're talking about Cameron's Top 5 Bigfoot List. Top 5 spot number 5, he says, go to Ohio in the USA. Ohio, go searching for the Ohio Grassman Salt Fork State Park. Seems to be the place to go. I'd probably not go to a state park that's already got a bunch of squatchers in it. But hey, the Grassman has been known to be seen all over the place going towards Kentucky, so one never knows. All right. Hotspot number 4 is anywhere in Oregon. That's right. We talked about earlier with Derek Randalls and the Olympic project. The Olympic Peninsula is probably a really, really, really good place to go squatching. Yeah, it's one of those places that you just, if there's going to be a Sam Squanch out there, there's a good chance it's going to be on the Olympic Peninsula. So hopefully those guys have a little more luck this year. Go get them. Somebody get pictures or get one Disney in a box this year because we're all tired of waiting. All right. Location spot number 3 is Mount St. Helens, Washington. That's right. That's right here in the good old U.S. of A. as well. They say that after the volcano exploded and the fires took forth on all the mountainsides, the Bigfoot were seen being carried out by top men in helicopters. Yeah, I don't know if those stories are true, but it's always a friend of a father's of somebody's uncle's whose great granddaddy worked for the NSA. But those stories very well could be true. Hotspot location number 2 is Bluff Creek, California. Imagine that. Humboldt County, USA. One of the spots we're going to be talking about tonight is Humboldt County, California. That's right. And hotspot number 1, he says, is Harrison Hot Spring, British Columbia in Canada. That's right, where the great John Green started his hunt for the wild man. He wasn't looking for a Bigfoot. He was looking for a pre-human wild man, wearing pelts, carrying a club. Yeah, give me a clue. You know why the caveman carried them by their hair? Because if you carried them by the feet, they'd fill up. All right, so there you have it. Cameron's top 5 Bigfoot list of the week. Ohio, number 5, Oregon, number 4, Mount St. Helens, Washington, number 3, Bluff Creek, California, number 2, and Harrison Hot Springs, British Canada, number 1. There you have it, folks. And he's a heck of a researcher, so he would definitely know for sure. So it is definitely that time of the night we're actually going to get down and talk and that's something that's going to be Humboldt County, California. That's right. The reason that I looked at Humboldt County, California is because there are actually pretty much almost sort of kind of confirmed reports that come out of Humboldt County, California. And, you know, some of them are pretty classic and some of them are, well, they're just internationally known. However, let's start back just a little bit. In 1957, or possibly 58, the witnesses weren't exactly sure by the time people were doing it, 3 children have a daytime sighting near Eureka, California. Now, this is the time that we do that spinny thing where people go, where the heck is Eureka, California? Well, guess what? The Rev's got his stuff together this week, and he's going to be able to show you thanks to Google Maps. That's right. The googly map there, the little red dotted outline is actually showing you Humboldt County. That's what we're talking about tonight. Now, that doesn't look very, that doesn't look very squatchy. It's all white and it doesn't look like it's hills or anything. But when you turn Google Earth on, really take a look at what it is as well. It's the watershed side of the mountain range. Look at that. Redding is on the shadow side of the mountain, and the watershed side of it is over here towards Eureka. Now, these people are right over here. Let's get a little zoom in going in towards Eureka that this sighting actually comes from. I doubt that it comes from downtown Eureka out here on the coast by the water. I'm sure it comes from one of these areas back here, but let's see what the sighting actually had to say. Now, they were about 10 or 11 years old. There was a brother and a 15 months older sister and a friend of theirs, aged 53 by the time they're telling the story. They lived in the countryside outside of Eureka, California. We went fishing at the end of our rural road, Old Harrison Road, as kids would do when they wandered off into the woods and found an old logging road that they decided to walk up. About 15 minutes up the road, they heard a noise in the woods, and on the other side of the road, together and waited to see who was there. We saw a creature on the other side of the trees. They began to run back down the road, and the creature kept pace with them, although they knew due to the size it could easily go faster. It stayed in the brush and the trees, and when it could get ahead of them, it would stop and watch them, but never came across the road, just followed and watched from across the path there. When they reached the center of the clearing on Hanson's property, they stopped and looked back, and it was no longer there. About 2 years after this, brother, if he remembered the incident, thinking that it was something that they had just imagined, and he said he was just as wide-eyed as that day. So yes, it was definitely real. So there you have it. You know, 1957 or 1958, long before the days of naming it Bigfoot. People here actually had the sighting near Eureka, California. Also, earlier, year 1963, summer, Humboldt County. They're down the Myers Flat Loop Road to the river. There's an old logging bridge about halfway around. The sighting was up that road about 2 miles. So they're in Myers Flat, California. Let's see if the old googly earth can find us Myers Flat real quick, because I know it will. Okay, there we go. Myers Flat, California. And it's just going to give us a little zoomy. And look at it. We are right back into what looks like there's one little area of Myers Flat, California. So let's hear what those people had an encounter from 1963. I grew up in Northern California. I lived in a small town called Piercy, California, about 17 miles from Garberville. This encounter was located in a small mill town called Myers Flat. Two friends and I were hunting up an old logging road roughly 2 miles up the mountain across the Eel River from town. I was far ahead of my friends and decided to scare them as they came up the trail, so I climbed up some rock cliffs for a better advantage and settled down with some huckleberry bushes to wait for my friends. After things quieted down, I noticed a heavy smell and started looking around, blowing straight from the bush behind me, and I felt the hair on the back of my neck starting to rise up. My two friends were nowhere in sight. I noticed a small movement right behind me. I stood up ready to run when this thing stood up also, but turned and walked off into the bush. Tapping and the crunch of dry leaves echo away as I ran back to my friends who were still 200 yards away. After I calmed down, we went back to the spot and we looked for some signs. They believed I saw a bear, but I know what I saw. We found where something was squatted down and stripping berries. I had disturbed its meal. Small trees were broken off about 4 feet from the ground, and this thing made its retreat. So, a small little logging community or a small little mill where they're processing these logging trails, and kids go wander off to go hunting in these logging trails, and they find a Bigfoot eating berries. A completely believable tale as far as I'm concerned as well. 1964. That's right. Again from Humboldt County. Salmon Creek turnoff coming from Myers Flat. Go down Salmon Creek Road. The first dirt road going up the hill to the right is where they grew up. Salmon Creek Road just above the 101 freeway. Again, we're talking about the same little mill town of Myers Flat. Mountain along the Eel River, Kings Range, and I cannot tell you the exact year that I had this sighting. Not sure if I was 11 or 12. That would make it 62 through 64, so one of those 2 years. I was below our house and used to go down to the spring and just hang out. Halfway down and looked across, and there was this big ape. In my mind, it was looking at me. It is still so clear at this very moment. I do know that I left first, and I never said a word to anyone to what I saw. Our house burned down in 67 or 68, and we moved to Eureka. When my sister and I became adults, I told her what I saw, and she started crying and explained the same thing, only it was down at the spring, and it was above her on the log. So, here again, we have around the same Myers Flat little mill town in the middle of nowhere in Humboldt County. Let's pick up one more. And it says it is from the Stony Lagoon, south of Oric, California. So we're going to change our location here just a little bit. Let's take a look at Oric, California. Now, Oric's a little more out towards the coast. I've actually been watching in Oric myself, so I know it's definitely a squatchy place. As I said, it doesn't look like much. When you click on it on the map, it turns into this white thing. It looks like it would be something that would be huge, but no, this is literally the little town of Oric, California, and it doesn't have much around it. So let's take a look here at what kind of an encounter they had here in 1975. Summer, June, probably raining because they're in a rainforest, but who knows? Of the Coast Highway. A friend and I were on our way to the mouth of the Klamath River area to fish on a friend's boat and pulled off on highway at the Stony Lagoon, approximately 3 to 4 miles south of Oric, California. We went west over a small hill and down to a camping area almost on the beach, passing through 200 to 300 trees. They parked their motorcycles 10 feet or so apart and built a small fire and unrolled their sleeping bags. There was a very bright moon over the ocean and west of the beach. About 100 feet west of us, there was 30 feet or so foot from the water, a large human-like form was trotting or bobble timing, whatever that means, not sure. So down the beach, my buddy yelled at him to come join us, and he kept on going. We took our flashlights and went down to the beach. We don't know what made the prints. but they look to be at least 6 inches wide, at least 12 inches, if not 14 inches long, maybe longer. My friend heard noises in the brush behind us, and he shined the light in the brush and said he saw eyes. We rolled our bags, and we lost no time leaving. The prints in the sand were a good 10 feet apart, a 10-foot walking span. Now, I've got a friend, Chris, who's like 6'5", and he's got a 6-foot walking span. So a 10-foot walking span would be, 7, 8 feet, maybe, but that's quite a bit impressive. However, now we need to talk about exactly where leading to the night, and of course, and that is up to 1967 and of Patterson-Gimlin. That's right. Now, I've actually brought up some stills of the Patterson-Gimlin films. Cell 350 is what's considered in public domain. So that'll be the example that I'll be using here tonight as soon as there it is. Located here on my box. I said box. This is the largest, quality, clearest digital picture of the original film strip that was taken. This is a copy of Bill Munn's digital of the original film that he took, I believe, is a Generation 2 copy. Now, we're going to talk about a few things about this cell, but what we're talking about initially here is the fact that it is an animal already in this picture. It's small in the cell. That's the first thing. It's very small in the cell. Difficult to tell what it is. But what I can say is that I see muscles in the thighs and behind the thighs, in the quad muscles. I see legs with hair on them. I don't see pants with hair on them. They're not wearing hairy Levi's. Whatever this is isn't wearing hairy Levi's. That's what it would have been in the day, including the 2001 Space Odyssey monkeys. They were wearing hairy Levi's, and you could tell. But there's other cells of pictures that I'm going to be bringing up here tonight that'll bring it a little more clear. The skeptics out there can say, oh, it might be a person in a suit, all they want to. After the night, I'm pretty sure you're going to be convinced that's just not going to be the case. So let's take a look at the next cell that I've got up here. Now, we go from cell number 1, which is way back yonder, and they go, hey, let's blow it up and see what it looks like. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything when you do that. And that's the problem with digitally enhancing anything. When you blow it up in size, you also blow up the pixels and you lose all of the details. So when I look at this picture all blown up, and this is the ones that they're trying to analyze, I can't see much of anything but blobs and blurbs. But when I look at the original picture in the aspect, pardon me, in the aspect that it's supposed to have, I see far more detail in the hair and then the face in this smaller picture than I can actually see in this blown up mess. Now, this blown up mess is also an original copy of 352, which is probably, a picture of 4 megapixels that was taken back in those days. And it was what we had to deal with. But this is the blown up thing people were trying to make the determination of whether it's a man in a suit or not. And I'm sorry, I just can't see any detail in here to be saying anything. But if you showed me this picture, why, this picture's an animal. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is all of these digital enhancements that people are trying to bring out what Patty actually is aren't really necessary. You can look with your natural eye. If I was standing on this sandbar, if that thing was walking in front of me at this aspect with the detail that I have in it from this camera angle, that's an animal. It's got hair on its legs. It's got, well, it's probably a female. The hair is thin at the waist. I can see that there's no hair across the eyes, and it's definitely in motion. That's what I see about this. I see this and I go, yeah, that looks like a really bad football helmet with, the description that old One-Eye Hieronymus wants us to believe that he was in the suit. So let's move right along here. Hey, how'd that get in there? Chewbacca? I don't know. All right. So this is the best they could do back in the day. This was the chromium upgrade, the chromium impression of cell 352 that they took Pride and Prejudice. They printed this thing up to giant people sizes. They carried it around to all of the conferences. And I got news for you. It's not as detailed as this picture is. Not even close. This picture has far more detail in it than that Chromium Edition upgrade. Sorry, folks, it really does. This, to me, still kind of pointing more towards man in a suit. I can see why people are starting to have a problem with it. The more pictures I looked into Patty and the more enhancement they did on it, the worse the animal itself actually looks. Imagine that. So here is a natural look. It's just a slightly larger impression of the original frame 352. That still looks like an animal to me. Still a little bit questionable about what kind of animal it is. Still not as detailed as the original Bill Munn's frame. However, I still would be leaning more towards real animal, not a man in a suit. But the more impressions you do, the more enhancements you do on this stuff, the more it looks like a dude in a suit. Look at that. That literally looks like a rubber face with gloves. This is an MK Davis enhancement that he's trying to show the fingers are curled, and the thumbs kind of sticking out, and to show movement in the hand. And I understand what he's getting, but boy, that sure makes this whole thing look a little subject to me, anyhow. There's a Dread Fun. That's right. 2014, our good guy from Patty. He wanted to get a drawing in of Patty. I wanted to showcase him a little bit. We haven't talked about Dread Fun in quite some time, and I missed the guy. So there's his rendition of Patty. You can find him on his YouTube channel at youtube.com/dreadfun. And here's such enhancement of frame 352. And the enhancements just don't make the case. They're awful. They make the animal look awful. They make the case look awful. Here's all the hidden Bigfoots in the Patterson-Gimlin film. If you didn't know, there's a theory out there that there's a whole family of Sasquatch just hiding around Patty as she runs through here. I got news for you people. Those hills are so steep, nothing could actually be standing over there where you've got all those red circles. But hey, at least you tried. But again, here's more of those. Let's tweak it and twalk it and make it a little bit more goofy, and you still can't make out what the details are. Here is the one frame that I did want to talk about. And this is another one of those MK Davis enhancements. Now, he's done some fabulous stabilization work. Once he stabilized the images, you've actually been able to see that this, again, is not Harry Levi's. And if you look at the two frames side by side, this screams more creature, more creature. Finally, we're back to the original frame. Now, we've seen all the enhancements. We're back here looking at the original digital picture like I was talking about. Tell me what you think about it. Put it in the comments down there. Send me a message on Facebook. Start up a conversation about it, whatever the case. But as I bring this up and I digitally enhance this a little bit more and a little bit more, you can see how the detail tends to go away and makes a worse case for it being the actual creature and a more case of it being a man in a suit. Now, I've actually stood directly where this creature is walking across here. As a matter of fact, I have sat upon that log that you see stretched out there in front of us, which is now nicely in the shade because the river actually moved. Bluff Creek actually moved quite a bit. This has all been preserved, which the Bluff Creek project has done a fantastic job of preserving it, clearing it out, and seeing how you can actually get back down in there and see it. That's the next thing that we're going to talk about on the show is why this particular location would have been the worst place in the world to have a hoax. So, seeing as how I've said that I've actually stood in that location, let's go ahead and do our last little screen sharing of the night and show you kind of where that location actually is, because that's kind of important. We're not going to go back to googly Earth. We're actually going to go over here, and this is the Wikipedia for the Patterson-Gimlin film. The footage was filmed alongside Bluff Creek, a tributary of the Klamath River, about 25 logging road miles northwest of Orleans, California, in Humboldt County. The film site is roughly 38 miles south of Oregon and 18 miles east of the Pacific Ocean. For decades, the exact location of the site was lost primarily because of regrowth of the foliage in the stream bed after the flood of 64. It was rediscovered in 2011. It is just south of a north running segment of the creek known as the bowling alley. And if you go out to Stephen Strufert's Bigfoot blogs website, you can actually see that the coordinates are plainly posted directly here on. It's not a secret as to where the location of the film site actually is. They've matched up the trees. We've done all of that. Here's actually the movie, The Bluff Creek Project. 9 men search for evidence of Bigfoot. Reverend Jeff here, Wes Losner was with us. John Harper was with us. Jamie Scottmont was with us. A whole bunch of people were there. I did a 49-minute movie on it, and the pitch for money isn't until the end. So you can enjoy the whole thing without actually getting bombarded for cash. That's up on the website as well. So here we have the GPS coordinates. The Bluff Creek Project loaded on up in our wheel gun here. At least it was, but unfortunately it's not now. So I'll go back to that in just a moment. Louse Camp is where we stayed when we filmed the 9 men search for Bigfoot. And as you can see, here exactly is Louse Camp. Forest Road 12 and 10 is what you actually take in through the directions to get into the Bluff Creek filming site location, which is actually straight down here on this side of the river. We actually came in and walked in and came up the river and went to the left side. The other guys actually walked downstream, and this is all moving down towards the Klamath. So, Harold, would you pick this type of a location to have a Bigfoot hoax when you could literally have done it directly off of Forest Road 1210 and nobody would have done any different? Done it where the river crossed the creek. There used to be a bridge there, but there isn't anymore. Coming right into Louse Camp itself, the road here, there's where the road comes into the camp. You could actually hoax a Bigfoot site right here in Louse Camp, and nobody would have questioned whether it was here or whether it was down here on some sandbar. It's really just let's pick the hardest place ever to get into to have a Bigfoot hoax when they literally could have hoaxed it at the Blue Lagoon directly behind Bluff Creek and would have actually made. So with all of that said, that's the presentation for Humboldt County Bigfoot Encounters for this evening, Eddie. We got to hear quite a few of them. I haven't gone through any of the whole lot of them, as I said. And what the new announcement's actually going to be is the fact that there'll be a brand new Bigfoot campfire story every Friday following a Season of Encounter show. So I'll be doing a Humboldt County Bigfoot campfire story that'll be released Friday night as well. So the first solo edition of the Season of Encounters. I want to thank every one of you for joining you, and it looks like you've all actually made it back for the second half. I am going to be doing an after hangout to hear what some of you guys thought of the show, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for joining us, and may the Squatch be with you.